poll from YouGov. As far as you know, is the person who shot Charlie Kirk a Democrat, Republican, neither, or not sure? Among all adults, 21% of adults think that the shooter was a Democrat. 24% think he was a Republican. That means the public would be wrong. 15% said neither, and 40% said not sure. Before we move forward with the rest of this, I want to show you this article from The Telegraph. Charlie Kirk suspect was in romantic relationship with transgender roommate. Tyler Robinson was arrested after someone he was living with handed evidence to the FBI. I don't think it is typical of Republicans to be having romantic relationships with trans people unless the left wants to argue now that the right is pro-trans. Let me make sure I can get more context for you and pull up a statement from the Utah governor so we can add to this. And we will use, let's see. Let's go with The Independent, and we'll grab a couple more just to make sure this is clear. Charlie Kirk shooting suspect was on the left, but motive still unclear, Utah governor says. Let's try another source. Let's do the Washington Post. Here we go. A separate source. Kirk shooting suspect had leftist ideology, but motive unclear. Okay, I think the Washington Post, the Telegraph, and the Independent are good enough sources for those that are watching this video to now understand that while this guy was not a Democrat or a Republican, he was a left-aligned individual, which puts him in the Democrat political camp. So this is a poorly worded question, to be completely honest, but the answers given are remarkable. By region, this is funny. In the Northeast, 20% said Democrat, 23% Republican. The Midwest, 25% said Democrat, 24% said Republican. You want to know why that is? Because y'all in the Midwest are big viewers of Timcast IRL. Thank you for watching.
Very good.
It actually is true. Chicago is our biggest, probably because I'm Chicago politics. Let's go by gender. 22% of males think he's a Democrat, 24% a Republican. 20% of females a Democrat, 25% a Republican, which they'd be wrong. By politics, Democrats, when asked, as far as you know, is the person who shot Charlie Kirk, 41% said he was a Republican. 41% of Democrats incorrectly said the shooter was a Republican. Why? Because liberals, like Politics Girl, who I believe is Midas Touch, fabricated information and flooded the zone, she among many, and I believe it was intentional to confuse and obfuscate the fact that it appears the motivating factor of Charlie Kirk's assassination was transgender ideology. I will stress, while transgender ideology isn't typically associated with left economic policy, it is progressive ideology. And there's one important distinction here. If you are, quote unquote, on the left, there is no issue whatsoever in you publicly stating you don't want socialist economic policy. They won't care. There are only a couple of issues that you can say that will excise you from the left. And one of them is opposition to gender ideology, which puts it squarely on the left. So if you think a Republican had a transgender lover, that's very strange considering what Democrats actually fight for. Now, when Republicans were asked, 40% said he was a Democrat. To be fair, Democrat aligned makes sense, but the question is poorly worded as he was politically unaffiliated, in which case neither is technically the correct answer. But this is why, if you're actually asking this question, you should respond with left aligned, right aligned, or liberal or conservative leaning. But we understand the intent behind this. Democrats are wrong, Republicans are right. Democrats were tricked into believing something that is not true. How do we function when you have people like Jimmy Kimmel intentionally lying, Politics Girl intentionally lying, the Krasensteins, Destiny, all of them, and they know they're lying? I am not playing this game. I am not stupid, and I will not be manipulated by people who are going to try and tear on your heartstrings and exploit your goodwill while they advocate for death and murder. They know they're lying. Why? Some of these things are so absurd to believe in the first place that you have to intentionally, look, you'd have to be developmentally disabled to make some of these statements that these people have made. Like Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have a team of people who can use Google. How many press conferences have we had where they're like, He had a trans lover and he was leftist aligned. The Guardian reported that he had his friend said he was a leftist, the only left person in his family. The mother stated that he had been pushed to the left, that the father called him because the father was upset that the kid was dating a man, that the guy was dating a man, that he was gay. Axios reported the Groyper thing was a lie. Axios reported 6 independent sources familiar with the investigation said the motivating factor may be his transgender lover. I think they said roommate. And Democrats still believe fake reality. So when Politics Girl makes a video and she's like, turns out he came from a conservative background and the engravings on the gun were just markings from a manufacturer. There is no way she wasn't aware that she was reading lies directly into that camera. How do you live in a place like this?
It's tough because they're doing their best to place the blame, on conservatives. And this is kind of modus operandi. Like the way that the ADL had accumulate or taken the information that they got for that the right is actually responsible for most of the political violence and stuff. They went into prisons, and every time there was a white supremacist that got into a fight with someone, they called that politically motivated, and it's intended to create this narrative that the left never does anything wrong, and it's always the right, and when it is the left, well, it was justified. And you can see that by the way people reacted on TikTok and on Instagram and Reels and stuff like that.
I just saw a post from Andy No. Shout out to Andy No. Something I hadn't considered in the previous story, but I'll bring up now as we're in the general conversation. I think it is now fair to say that we have proof that we literally just showed. The shooter did not act alone. Andy No has a great post. The shooter, according to the messages released by, I believe, by the DOJ and the sheriff and police, was of the shooter instructing his lover to destroy incriminating evidence.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they had stressed that the letter that said he was going to kill Charlie had been destroyed, and they found forensic evidence of it. And the messages that they recovered from Discord, I believe they said had been destroyed, which would imply that while he may not have organized, we may not have direct proof that the shooter organized the assassination with help. I think we have evidence that he did. Other people knew about it. So perhaps he worked, fair point, perhaps he worked alone, but he told people what he was doing. However, as far as the crime goes, yeah, I can't believe I missed this one. Shout out Andy No. Instructing an individual to destroy evidence implicates you in that crime.
Mm-hmm.
Not for the murder, but for the destruction of evidence.
If they actually destroy the evidence, yeah.
And they did.
That's what I asked on that segment earlier. Did he actually destroy the text messages? And if he did, he becomes an accomplice.
You're right. Yeah,
deleting them counts as destroying evidence, right?
I believe yes.
It does. If someone tells you they just committed a felony and you delete it, and they say, please delete it, and you delete it, you're accomplice.
But not just that. I believe that it was Cash. I could be wrong. Someone had made a statement that there was a letter saying that the shooter said he had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do it. They said the note was destroyed, but they found forensic evidence of it. I thought it was a digital message. From what they've reported, it was a note he wrote and put under his keyboard and then told his lover to lift the keyboard and take a look, who saw the letter. If that indeed was destroyed, then I believe it's probably many felonies?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
It'd probably be a felony. Count every message that they deleted, they'd probably count as a...
So investigation.
To the point of this YouGov poll. Guys, subscribe to my channel at Tim Pool. It's on Rumble and YouTube. New videos. I did a review assessments reaction to a video from a YouTube channel called Moon, where he argued the assassination of Charlie Kirk will bring about civil war. That was the title. And he points out that, as we have, there is no reconciliation because each group lives in an entirely different universe. And that means that the other group becomes an existential threat. I think it is clear to say right now, I have proven to all of you, the shooter was not a Republican. If your argument is that Republicans are transphobic, then you have a cognitive dissonance, because why would a Republican that you believe is transphobic be living with a trans roommate and kill one of the most, if not the most prominent conservative activist in the country? That does not make a lick of sense. Furthermore, I've shown you numerous articles and statements showing that officials said this was a leftist-aligned person with a trans roommate, so it is clear. if you still believe that the shooter was a Republican, you have cognitive dissonance. But more to the point, it is clear now to all of you who don't that Democrats clearly do. How do we live in a society with terroristic threats, violence, assassinations from people who believe 2 + 2 = 5? Also not an exaggeration.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say real quick is like, I mean, this isn't even like 2020 where you could chalk this up to propaganda or gaslighting or that sort of thing.
Pull this up?
You have
Not even a joke.
mainstream outlets saying this guy was a leftist, and Democrats are still digging their heels in. So it's like you can't even chalk this one up to propaganda this time. This is just straight up cognitive dissonance. This is straight up
Cognitive dissonance for some, but it's also there's a motivation to deceive.
There's a huge social incentive right now to double down on this.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier we were asking, what should the response be given all these threats, given that the Constitution was made for a moral and religious people and leftists in our country are not that? How do we react to people who are bending at the fabric of our Constitution and our society? I think we need to double down on the values that Charlie Kirk espoused and continue his legacy and how he went about his advocacy. I think when people try to terrorize conservative outside of college campuses, we need to double down and continue going to college campuses. I don't think we need to run away from free speech. I think we need to double down on free speech. I think cracking down on free speech would be antithetical to all of Charlie Kirk's values. So I think, Tim, I think you have like a reason to be afraid and concerned about going to Charlie Kirk's wedding. But I think like
Funeral.
Oh,
yeah. Although he did have a great video about how men wear black at their wedding because it's a kind of funeral.
And like the values he talked about were getting married early and being religious. But I guess living in fear would really only encourage more terrorism because then they'd be accomplishing their goal and you'd be further incentivizing their goal. Also recently came out the speakers for Charlie Kirk's memorial service. President Trump, Vice President Trump, Erica Kirk, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, RFK Jr., Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump Jr.
Indeed.
I think it would be meaningful if you were able to arrive too.
Yeah, I'm not like a speaker or anything like that.
Yeah.
And they have secure sections for high-profile individuals, and it's a weird thing to say, but I have so many death threats. The question is not the event, which would obviously be amazing, but look, it's an extremely high-profile event in Arizona, and this means that I have to have a 24/7 security detail. I'll be confined to my hotel. This is the reality of going into places like this right now. We're a week out. Now, I get it. I can do the basic disguise thing and, try and figure things out and do stuff like that. And my point is not that I wouldn't go. The point is not that fear has kept me confined to my house and I won't even go outside anymore or anything like that. No, there's a thing called courage. Courage does not mean you don't have fear. It means that even when you're afraid, you still push forward. The issue that I bring up with this debate is that they have created an air of terror that, for a fact, who are we talking with? Connor Tomlinson, when he said there were conservatives who did not go to the Unite the Kingdom rally because of the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So Charlie Kirk is assassinated by a leftist. Now I think it's fair to say confirmed. And they go online and say, you are next. We know where you are and we're coming for you. The purpose is to terrify as many people as possible. And to be completely honest, the threat of death is real. It's a real death threat. So you've now got to weigh the risks you are willing to take and what risks and why. And so the question of the university event that I was going to be doing with Alex Stein, that was going to be in a month, and we're canceling that. I think Alex said he was canceling all of his university events because you can't secure it. Does it make sense in a time of political assassinations and death threats for me to go out in the public to try and talk with 500 people when I can do my show and reach millions? Why would I risk losing my opportunity to speak and call these things out for that? And so for that, we've canceled it. That being said, for the events that we're doing for the Culture War Live, they're indoor with full security screenings. We are still making concessions. I've long said I believe in the Second Amendment, and if I'm going to go in public and people want to be armed, then so be it. But now the question is, I can't because they're actively trying to kill us, expressing their desire to do so, and largely getting away with the threats.
I think.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.